Hi, thank you all for being here with us today. We have 3 very brave applicants who are with us on this GMAT session. I am Susan Berishaj. I'm the founder of C Admissions Consulting, which is a New York-based admissions coaching firm. I work with young and very ambitious applicants who target top 20 business school programs, and my focus is really to help them cultivate and really demonstrate their experiences and their character to the top ranked institutions. So with that said, I'm going to just give the mic over to the applicants. If you can just briefly introduce yourselves with kind of where you are located, and then we'll go through profile evaluations of each, and we'll open the room for additional questions at the end for the participants who are with us today. So I'll be able to answer additional questions there. So E, why don't we start with you? Just a brief intro.
Sure. So I'm currently at a Boston-based asset management firm with about 3 years of experience. I studied mechanical engineering undergraduate with a GPA of 3.1, and my post-MBA goals is to transition into more quantitative side of investing.
Awesome. Perfect. So I'll come back to your profile after each one of you introduces yourselves, and then we'll talk more about your chances and everything else. Awesome. M, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep. So I currently work in the oil industry for a large company. I'm in Texas, and my undergrad GPA is a little bit low, but I had some personal health struggles during my undergrad that impacted my GPA. So I wanted to hear about that, and I'd have a little bit more experience. So I think I'm on the older end of the range, but I think that this is the best time for me to go back and consider the full-time MBA program now.
Awesome, thank you. And N, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Hi everyone. So I'm based here in the Philippines, and I have been working in the CPG industry for the past 7 years. Also, my post-MBA goal is to focus more on the strategy, marketing, probably in a CPG industry still in the US.
Awesome, great. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. So we'll go back to E. You mentioned a little bit about your background. Tell me more about, tell the people watching, I do have a copy of your resume here in front of me, but if you can tell me more about the experiences that you've had that led you to this point in your career, that you're now seeking an MBA. So that's first and foremost. And then obviously tell me a little bit more about your goals and your extracurricular work that you have done in the past. And then we'll talk more about the schools, the target, and everything else afterwards.
Of course. So I had an engineering background to undergraduate. I work in the IT side of asset management with work in both reference data as well as investment science. So I've been exposed to the technology side of that. And going forward, I know that if I want to transition into truly the investing side of the industry I'm in, I need to have more of a firm grasp of finance in general, and I feel like the MBA would be the best way for me to get there.
Yeah.
Outside of my day-to-day job, I'm part of a few committees at work where we create a summit every year for young professionals it runs a gamut of topics. Like, for example, the last one was obviously about how the world has changed due to the pandemic. And outside of the professional space, I currently have 2 volunteer positions where I work with people in need, usually people who have just been released from prison to find just jobs in general. So, and I also am a programming coach for elementary students, where we run a virtual class every Saturday. Where, yeah.
That's robust and wide set of interests, and I actually like it a lot. So let's go back to your work, your current work. You're working on the tech side, but for a financial institution.
Yes.
On your day-to-day, are you working with investment professionals there? And the reason why I'm asking this is job transitions are absolutely a part of the MBA experience. And oftentimes that transition becomes easier, especially for a very competitive sector like finance, when you have some transferable skills. So are you working with professional, with the finance managers or someone that you're using this data to sort of manipulate it in a way that produces reporting that is beneficial to the investment decisions?
Yes, I've built some NLP tools for specific investors where you had to work hand on hand in order to deliver a product that's actually useful for them. In general, I've also written scripts for specific solutions that are more targeted while I was part of investment data science.
Yeah.
Currently, my role is just to make sure the data comes in and is clean and is usable, which is part of the reference data space. So in general, while I do have to every so often have meetings where we have to discuss some points of data, my day-to-day right now isn't working with investors, but I have in the past in order to understand the problems they're facing and the best way to address them in a cost-effective and time-efficient manner.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, that's great. Yeah, that would be something that I would say is going to be an important element to be able to convey to your in your applications, so that, especially for, if your job is very technical, you'll need to be able to translate that to someone who is not in that space to understand what it is that you did, but also be able to say that you've been working with obviously individuals on the investment side of the business, so that you have a understanding of what are some of the problems that you would be facing. Now, of course, the MBA is going to help you learn a lot of the the finance language and all the other things that are related to your goals. But in your application, I would definitely say that would be something you want to spend a little time on. I would also like, so I also like the work that you're doing, especially the committees and especially the volunteer work and the coaching. So there's a lot of different experiences that you have. And I would like to see a lot of those on your resume, more so than projects you did in undergrad. And I know this is probably a job resume, which is different than an MBA resume. So that would be one of my recommendations. It's really, think of the resume as a glimpse, a snapshot into the experiences that the school can look at it and say, yes, you have the transferable skills. Yes, we can place you into that future role. Especially for something like the financial services that is very, very competitive. And it's one of the top 3 sectors that MBA candidates go into post-degree. So it's going to be not only competitive to sell yourself in the application process, but also get that job afterwards as well. And you mentioned here your GPA in undergrad. So I would say, you have well, one, you would have to obviously express sort of what happened that in that period of time, it looks like you were very engaged, right? So you were doing a lot of research project in that period of time. So sort of what happened with the GPA is going to be something that the admission committee kind of has to preemptively answer that question, because they're not going to call you and say, hey, like, E, can you tell us what happened here? You know, you have to be able to share that with them in advance. So I would definitely do that. And then also, obviously, your GRE is pretty good, and especially on the quant side. So you have evidence to demonstrate that you'll be able to handle the rigor of these institutions. So now my question for you is, I see a range of different schools, and there could be various different reasons that you're targeting them. So can you tell me a bit about your target list, and so what was the thought process for you?
So some of them are just locations where I visited and I just enjoyed the atmosphere.
Yeah.
For schools such as Booth and Stern and Ross, they have specific quantitative programs that I really enjoyed, and I know they'd be difficult to get into, especially considering my GPA. I guess I threw on Harvard just because it's
Harvard.
Yeah. So I'm still, like, for my round one, I'm targeting more Booth and Ross versus the other three, but I have done a lot of research into Kellogg, and I've been seeing that for a round two, maybe. I admit I still have to do more research on Harvard, but the other four, have spent a lot of time talking to some people who have attended the programs, and they've had just specific clubs or classes or professor that I would really enjoy having the opportunity to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Kellogg is thought of as like a marketing school and a consulting school, but they are actually putting in a lot of resources to change that and bringing more financial services opportunities on campus. So definitely something to look at. Did you? I mean, not that you have to target all of the top finance-related schools, but have you thought of Wharton at all, or?
I have thought of Wharton, but I haven't attended an info session yet, so I didn't want to throw on.
Yeah, just for throwing
a program that I can't really speak to too much.
Yeah, for sure. As if I can be very sort of blunt here, is as I was reading your profile and looking at what you're trying to do, I immediately, the first thing that came to mind was, oh, you would be so great for CERN. And I saw afterwards, because I didn't look at the list that you were targeting, then I saw that CERN was the first one on your list. So I think you can definitely explore a little bit more opportunities at different schools, but I think you have a lot to bring to the schools. So definitely focus a lot more on your storytelling. My last sort of parting words here is focus on the storytelling components, because that's going to be a key element in distinguishing yourself in your application, right? And you have a lot to say, so and a lot to share with the institution. So don't be shy.
Thank you.
Awesome, great, nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you.
Awesome, perfect. So we're gonna go with M. If M wants to come on screen. I think I lost him.
Hear me?
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Awesome. So give, I guess, everyone watching a brief intro of your past experiences, kind of the same way, your work, what have you been doing, and your goals. So what are you looking to do long term, some of your extracurriculars and such, so we can get the conversation started.
Yep. So like it shows, I went to the Colorado School of Mines. And then, like I said a few minutes ago, I think my GPA was a little bit low, obviously. primarily due to some personal health struggles that were pretty significant, such as to the extent that I was hospitalized a couple times, like shortly before finals or immediately after finals. A couple times during undergrad, I was able to get it under control and was able to get on the honor roll and dean's list my last 3 semesters of college. So then I started with a mid-sized oil company and worked there for 3 years and moved to a new opportunity to a smaller oil company. And again, was there about 3 years. And then I moved to my current employer about 4 years ago and was promoted into a leadership role back in 2018. And then due to restructuring, redundancies, downturn in the oil industry at the end of last year, some corporate mergers, I was moved back to an individual contributor role at the very end of last year. So kind of seeing everything in the last few years of the oil industry, and kind of moving back to an individual contributor role. I'm looking to get out of the more technical function. I've done it for 10 years. I'm looking for something new. My previous role got me more exposure to the strategy and the business aspects, and that's really what I'm interested in. I did a minor in business in my undergrad, so that was really always an intention of mine. It just never quite had worked out.
Yeah.
Kind of work-wise, I would generally say that I have a pretty strong experience of kind of like revitalizing assets, throwing forward new ideas, working with teams, managing budgets, managing projects. So really my intention, with that is to move towards a strategy manager type role for a energy company, not necessarily oil, actually preferably not oil, and more and use kind of my operations experience, my project management, my budgeting, and that type of sort of experience to go into like a clean energy or a clean tech space, and a lot of that experience I feel like would be very applicable, even though it's not exactly the same industry. And I picked those schools. I actually also am adding Tuck to that list. I'm picking schools that have strong energy programs from what I have seen online.
Yeah.
I've been able to talk to students, at least one student from every school, and have a couple other phone calls set up with other ones. So really looking to move more towards strategy and clean tech. I think that's it.
No, that's great. And you obviously have a lot of experiences you can share with the schools and with your classroom. I don't see here much as it relates to sort of extracurriculars or community engagement of any kind. I know that sometimes that's difficult, especially for high demand jobs that require all sorts of hours. So have you been doing anything as it relates to volunteer work or committee work or anything like that in college or post?
Yeah, so in college, I was involved with a number of club sports and was in leadership, president of a club sport, and really was able to kind of move that club forward, grow the size, grow the fundraising. And since then, since graduating, we've moved around a little bit every couple of years, so that has kind of limited my community engagement. And then, with some of the personal health struggles that I've seen in the past, in order to make sure that those are managed well, I've really only been able to focus on one thing, and that has been work. So that has definitely been an impact. My extracurriculars, especially post school, are very weak.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, perfect. And then you are also studying for or planning a retake of the GRE.
Yeah. So I'm planning to retake it in about a month, August 7th. And so that is another a fair question I have. Is obviously my GRE is not bad. It's in about average for most of these schools. Do you think that my experience and kind of my story is more where my value is? Should I put more of my time towards that, or should I, continue to focus on the GRE? And if I could get it up, I mean, 5 points is probably a realistic, increase. But I would.
Yeah. What is the breakdown of the GRE? How are you in the quant section?
It's almost exactly even. Actually did better on verbal. 161 verbal, 160 quant, and then 4.5 on writing.
Yeah. So I would. So your story is going to be very, very important in the application process. So I cannot stress that, because you have 10 years of work experience and you really want to demonstrate how you've been able to succeed in that 10-year time. You're also not the same person you were when you were in college. So, especially for older applicants, making sure that that experience is emphasized is going to be really important. That said, a 2.9, undergraduate GPA. I mean, obviously, this is a strong. This is a challenging program to study, engineering and all of that. So I do not discount that, and the fact that you were able to sort of increase your scores over time, that obviously, or your performance over time, that obviously is going to help, and it's going to. It's something you will need to explain in your applications, but it's going to be in your favor. I would say for the GRE, I would definitely consider increasing that score, especially the quant. If you can increase that, that it's going to make a difference in your application. So definitely try and do that, especially because also engineering. There's a lot of engineers that apply, so you want to demonstrate that you can handle all the rigor. You can, your 2.9 is not something that you should be, identifying yourself with, right? That you are no longer that same person, and that's a point in your life that you had experienced. You've overcome it. Now you're a different person. You show them how strong of a candidate you are by submitting a strong score.
Yep.
So that would definitely be something I would consider. Now, if you're applying, or rather, if you're retaking the GRE in August, are you still targeting round ones?
Yeah, I was planning to. I was hoping to.
Okay, so that means you're then preparing applications in tandem with your GRE studies.
Yeah. So I'm at the process of kind of starting to look at essays and think about, how to fill out essays, how to, convey my story in the various essays. Based on the application due dates of most of these, it's spread out over the course of September, October. So obviously kind of prioritizing those that fall in September right now, and then moving from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's very good. Because sometimes I speak with applicants who are planning to first, take the test and then start the application. But if you're targeting round one, with August 7 being the retake date, it doesn't give you enough time to actually put together a strong application. So like I recommended to E, I think for you're also, and I'm saying this just because I have experience working with engineers, you really want to sort of make your experiences accessible to someone who is not in your field, someone who doesn't speak your language. Yes, you are still applying or still want to work in the energy field, and that's totally okay. But the reader is not going to be someone, or don't expect the reader to be someone who understands energy. So all the experiences and the leadership and the achievements and the impact you're able to make in this 10 years time, convey that in a language that is accessible to someone who is not in your in your space at all.
Mhm.
So that would be, if you know someone who's not in that space, when you write your essays or when you write your resume in particular, share with them if you can, and just ask them to give you some sort of feedback as to, can they sort of sort of rephrase what you wrote in there in a way that is understandable to them and also to you. Right. So that would be my recommendation there. You will absolutely need to talk about your GPA in college. I would also say just present facts. No justifications required. And I would just caution you you also need to talk about your extracurriculars, why you haven't done anything in this period of time. Obviously share the ones that you've done in college so that they feel that meaning the school, feels that you would still be a contributing member to the classroom when you are a student there. But I would encourage you against talking about, how the health component detracted you from doing extracurricular work now, because, if you think about it, they're going to see this as, well, you're not going to be able to engage in our community at all.
Mhm.
So just keep that component in mind.
Yep.
And as far as the schools, I think, yes, these are definitely, the first school is definitely very strong in the energy space. So those are good. And I like that there are a range of schools, because that's going to be important in this application cycle. It's very, very competitive. A lot of people have been displaced. A lot of people have been laid off. Various industries that are going to be targeting MBA programs. So anticipate it to be competitive. And as a result, you really want to sort of, expand that list of schools that you're targeting to make sure that you get an offer that you are happy with and that you will be happily attend that institution should you be offered admission.
Yeah. Are there any other schools that you think I should add where you think my profile would fit in or be competitive?
Yeah, so I would say you have McCombs in there. Keenan Flagler is another. Georgetown is another school that you can look at. They have about 5% of their classes attend the energy or are placed in the energy sector post degree. They are sort of more on the safety side of the school list as far as for the sort of target and reaches. I think you want to keep it at the list that you currently have. But it's always good to have some safety schools in there that you are comfortable. Again, it's not just apply to a school just because, but rather, this is going to be a school that I would accept an offer if no other option is available.
Mm-hmm.
And then apply to those as well, just to make sure that you have options. And also, if you have multiple admits, there's always an opportunity to, negotiate scholarships and negotiate better terms.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Absolutely. Really nice talking to you, and thank you for sharing your story with everyone.
Yeah. Thanks.
Absolutely. Awesome. Anne, would you like to join us?
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for being patient.
It's okay.
So just like we'll start the conversation in the same vein as with E and M. If you can just give us a background story, what are your goals, and you're preparing for the GMAT. But if you've taken a mock, just kind of give us an idea of where you stand with that, and then we can talk more. We'll have more conversations.
All right. So I graduated last 2013 um, with a liberal arts degree in Manila. And also, right after graduation, I joined a local FMCG company handling their export business in North America, Dubai, Japan, and Island Pacific. And one of my key projects there was I was able to launch two private label projects in the Japan export market. And after 4 years with that company, I joined an international FMCG company, handling their execution of their promotions, merchandising, and manpower in a specific region here in the Philippines. So, why do I want an MBA? Basically, I want to go into brand right after, or marketing right after post MBA. And since I have a liberal arts degree, basically I don't have a sort of a foundation in terms of business. So I want to go into business school, um, hopefully next year. And I still want to join a CPG company right after.
Yep. Yep. Perfect. And now, are you, just so I understand, are you applying this year so you can attend next year, or you're applying next year so you can attend in 2023?
I'm applying this year so I can attend next year.
Okay. All right, good. Perfect. Awesome. So, one thing that I wanted to ask you a little bit more about is the community work. Have you done any community work while you were in undergraduate, and also since undergraduate, have you engaged in your community, whether that's through volunteer work, through boards, through any sorts of engagement?
Yep. During my undergrad, I was a vice president for internal affairs for a group. Basically, it's a small group of majors, international studies majors in the university. And currently here at work, I last year I organized a fundraising event um, when COVID started to happen here in the Philippines. Basically, when the Philippines went on lockdown last year, so some of my people got out of job, so they weren't able to go to their jobs for a temporary time.
Yep.
So I organized a fundraising event for them to have for a 1 week worth of groceries for their families.
Great. Yeah. Awesome. Perfect. So definitely you want to incorporate that into your resume.
Okay.
Just because it's definitely something that is going to make a huge difference in the application process.
Alright.
As far as the work experience that you've done, are there or experience you've had thus far? Are there any sort of experiences where you worked with the marketing teams, you marketed an item, worked with the sales team, anything like that you can talk about?
All right. So currently, I'm part of the execution arm of the international FMCG here in the Philippines. So whenever there's a trade marketing strategy that the company wants to execute on trade, so it is my job and my team's job to really execute it on the region I handle. And also, if there are certain agreements with the accounts here in the area that I handle, basically I tap to the same team, and we ensure the agreements were executed as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so you definitely want to incorporate some of those transferable skills, as I mentioned to E earlier. You want to incorporate some of those transferable skills into your writing. That's in your resume. That's in the experiences that you share with the schools. So absolutely. I mean, people, as I mentioned earlier, people use an MBA to make transitions all the time, and that's okay. But the fact that you are, still within the, it could still be marketing with the same industry. It makes it much easier, having had some experience before. But just showcase and demonstrate to the schools that you have transferable skills that they can market to employers in the long term.
Okay.
As an international applicant, I'm assuming you're planning to stay in the United States post MBA.
Yep.
Yeah, so I would definitely look at schools. I believe all the schools here, but look at programs that have the STEM designation. That allow the 1-year extension of the OPT visa, which helps you secure a job and helps you stay within the country for a longer period of time until you get the employer sponsorship that hopefully follows after an MBA. But I think as far as the experiences are concerned, I think you are. There's a lot you can bring to the table, so that's totally good. As far as the GMAT, I'm not sure if I got the numbers there, but did you do a mock yet? When are you planning to take it, to sit for it?
I'm planning to take it this July or August.
Okay, and have you done any mocks?
Not yet, but I'm preparing. I'm currently studying already for the GMAT.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So, and are you planning also to work on the applications while you're preparing for the GMAT, or you want to focus on the GMAT and then work on applications?
Currently I'm studying for the GMAT, focusing for the GMAT right now. And after I take the GMAT, I'll be focusing on my applications.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So then that means you're probably targeting round 2.
Yes, or
Okay.
round 1 and round 2.
Okay. If you sit for the GMAT, just realistically speaking, if you sit for the GMAT in August, and there's no work done in the application, it's unless you're looking at October deadlines, it's going to be difficult to submit a strong application by September. I'm only saying that because it's really, really important to submit a strong application, not just to submit an application, because just an application is not going to get you admitted. A strong application is what's going to increase your chances. And if you don't get admitted in one round, you cannot reapply until next year. So you can't reapply to the next round. So it's really, really important that you submit a strong a document or pieces of or presentation of your profile that captures all the work and all the amazing accomplishments you've done till now.
All right.
All right. Awesome.
All right. And also the list of schools, is it okay based on my MBA goal?
Yeah. So Yale, SOM, Kellogg, Ross, Anderson are strong in that order. Strong in the marketing component, or in marketing, in helping students transition to marketing experience. So definitely, that's a good list. I would probably target a few more schools, to be very transparent with you, just because it is a very competitive application process, and if you get 0 admits from all these schools, what's the fallback, right? So you want a few more safety schools in there as well, to increase that, to increase sort of like the outcome, the ROI in this investment of not just time but also money in the process.
Yeah. All right. Can you suggest some schools, if ever?
Yeah. So you can look at. I mean, we talked about Yale. You can look at Marshall. You can look at Pepper. Pepper is more technical, so that can be very, very good, especially because marketing nowadays is much going more on the technical side of things. Obviously, you can add more of the higher ranked institutions, but I would probably limit that, because if you apply to 10 of the top 10, may not be the best strategy. So you can look at those as well. To just add, first focus on sort of what do you want to gain out of the out of an MBA program. What are experiences that you want to have? What exposures do you want to have? Geography can be an important decision maker. The campus structure can be another important decision maker. So some schools are in the city propers, while others are in rural locations. So is that something that's going to be, an area that you would want to be in? Or just kind of make your list of what are the things you must have, and then look at schools that offer the things that you must have, and then narrow it down from there.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being brave and for sharing your story with everyone here today. I'm going to now move on to some questions from the audience, just because we have about 15 minutes left in our session. And thank you to all 3 participants who were really, really wonderful at sharing their stories. And I'm sure that their stories helped others here in the audience to answer some of their questions, but we'll just move now on to, I see some questions in the chat room. So how should applicants approach the application? What areas to focus on in the application? Very good question. So important components to focus on is leadership and impact. So leadership doesn't mean that you need to be a manager. It just means how you've taken initiative in your job. If you're, you can be in a very sort of flat organization that there's no sort of like leadership opportunities, or it can be just an organization where, you're not going to make, you're not going to have those opportunities. But the idea here is that you showcase that you have gone beyond what your job description is. So identify those experiences in your that you've had up till this point, and that could be obviously the best ones are the ones that are in your job. So what you have done in however many years of work experience you have. But if not there, you can always look for those leadership opportunities in projects that you've worked on. That could be in the community work, or it could be something recent. I wouldn't go, unless you graduated recently, I wouldn't go to experiences necessarily in your college, but really focus more on more recent experiences you can share. Just because if you've been 5 to 6 years out of college, the school is going to essentially wonder, okay, what have you been doing in the past 5 or 6 years, and where are those leadership opportunities that you can share with us? So definitely focus on that. Perfect. Next question. How do AdComs see a candidate having experience, having 5 years experience and 3 years gap, versus a candidate having 8 years experience? It really varies. For the candidate who has 5 years of work experience and 3 years of gap, 3 gap years, you really want to share with the school what has been going on in those 3 years. If you can't share much as to what has been going on in 3 years that you took, 3 years of gap time, that's not going to be a very positive perspective that the admission committee is going to have. So do spend time, talking about what you've been doing in that period of time. 8 years of experience is 8 years of experience of work that they can talk about. It depends on what field they're going into, post degree. But typically that, they're a more mature candidate, but they are still going to, all those 8 years of experience are going to be valued by the admission committee. Next question. How should we decide between applying early, hoping for a scholarship, versus submitting the best application later rounds? This is a great question that I get asked often, and it's a tough one because you want to try and apply as early as you can, especially if scholarship is an important component. But before you can get a scholarship, you have to get admitted into the program. So if you can't get admitted, there's no point in the scholarship at all because it's just invalid. So my recommendation is really submit your best application in the round that makes most sense to you. And by that, I mean probably round 1 and round 2. If you can't submit by round 1 or round 2, I would suggest to wait another year to submit when you can submit a strong application, because round 3, by that point, most of the class is filled, and it becomes much more challenging for you to gain admission. And most schools do have scholarship opportunities for both rounds, round 1 and round 2. So there's opportunities. Now, of course, if there are schools that have preferences to be considered for merit-based scholarship, so I'm just thinking about Columbia's business school that has a merit-based scholarship application round, which is in January. So that makes it round 2 perfect applicant. But if you're looking at like the scholarships like Stanford's Knight Hennessy scholarship, which is in September, then of course that you would miss out that opportunity. So it's really important that you submit first and foremost the strongest application you can, and then decide, okay, are you applying this year or next year? In which round are you going to target? How is experience in MNC or startup differentiated? The differentiation component is really the experiences that you've had in those fields. It's not about necessarily what have you been doing. It's what experiences that you've been able to gain in that period of time. So really focus on your experiences, demonstrating that you have gained a lot. There's oftentimes a lot of people. I mean, I'm just going to mention sort of consulting as one example. You have analysts that apply to MBA programs, and you have 2 different people, same company, same title, but their experiences are very different from one another. And the focus in how they get to differentiate themselves from the pool of applicants, and that's going to be the same thing with an MNC and startup, is talking about what you bring to the table, what experiences that you've had that can enrich the classroom. And that's how the schools are going to differentiate, are going to decide sort of who goes in, who comes in, and who doesn't. How to approach essays that don't have a word limit. I like this one. Just because there's no word limit, so I'm assuming this is probably Harvard's question about Harvard's essay. Just because it doesn't have a word limit, it does not mean that you can talk, or you can write rather, for 3,000 words. You have to use your best judgment to include what is the most important information that the school needs to know about you. Now, this can, essays like that one typically incorporate personal stories, experiences that you've had, and sometimes also depending on the person, but sort of like where they see themselves moving post MBA. You need to give examples, you need to give details, but you have to be economical also. And just bear in mind that the admission committee actually reads everything, and if what you're including in there is not going to be interesting and compelling and that's just, I mean, it's going to be boring to read. I'm not sure how else to put that. So just be mindful of the reader. Be sure to incorporate details of the experiences that you have. What makes you unique, right? What experience, how do you see the world? And that's when you are introspective and you are able to share more about your past experiences. That's what differentiates that application. So there's no word limit, but I would probably say, when there's no word limit, try to not exceed about 1,000 words. I left my job in order to focus on studying for the GMAT. Would that be a problem with my application? Yes, that's not the reason you. So let me just, come back to that. So everyone in this session has to take the GMAT or the GRE or the executive assessment, either one of those test scores. And most of the people here have full-time jobs. The admission committee expects essentially everyone to be able to manage all of that. So manage your job, manage your test, as well as manage your applications. When you quit your job to study for the GMAT, the school is going to say, or is going to take that as, well, it's too much work, and as a result, you're not able to handle all of that. And they may see that as a problem, because when you are in the program, you will have a lot of different things that you will be working on, whether that's your classwork, working with your team, community work, other things that are part of that experience that right now I can't think of. But the idea is that you're spending a lot of time doing a lot of different things. And the admission team is going to consider, quitting your job to study for the GMAT as a negative in that regard. But on top of that, also, it's putting pressure on them, because from their perspective, you quit a job to study for the GMAT, and the expectation is that you'll get admitted. Of course, everyone wants that, right? But what if you don't get admitted? What happens in the next year, 2 years, by the time that you find a job, sort of gain experiences and have to reapply? So it's a tricky situation. You will need to definitely explain it in your applications, but I would try not to say that you quit your job to study for the GMAT. And also find something else to do, not just study for the GMAT, that you can talk about as far as engagement is concerned. Can you tell me more about the letters of recommendation evaluation and the who should actually write them, I'm assuming. Okay, so the letters of recommendation are very important in the application decision process from the admissions perspective. They are going to be the only people outside of yourself that can talk about you and how you are as a professional, how you are as a team player, and how you are in that community of your job and the experiences that they've seen you. So they need to be someone who can talk about you. So it's not, I know people often think, oh, I need to find a recommender who is an MBA candidate or an MBA graduate, preferably from the school that I'm targeting. That's if they haven't seen you in your job, have you not seen you in your element, have not seen you, produce excellent work, they're not going to be the right person. I hear oftentimes, oh, I'm going to ask the CEO of the company because they have, the authority. If they haven't done those same exact things, if they haven't seen you at your job, haven't seen you grow, haven't seen you in your element, they're not going to be the right one. It cannot be or shouldn't be a colleague, because that's just they don't have the process, the ability to evaluate your candidacy, rather evaluate your performance, haven't given you most of the time, haven't given you constructive feedback. So those are components that the admission team will be expecting the recommender to be able to speak to. So it should ideally be a current supervisor, a former supervisor, if you work in a family business, a client, or a partner, or someone like that can speak to how you work. But it's less about their pedigree and more about how they have seen you and what can they say about you when you're in the letters of recommendation. One last question. So are post-MBA salaries always greater than pre-MBA salaries? Do companies consider pre-MBA salaries while making an offer? In most cases, post-MBA salaries are higher than pre-MBA salaries. Otherwise, it becomes sort of questionable as to why are you doing an MBA in the first place? So typically that's the case. Not always, for various different reasons. If you're changing industries altogether and you want to do something entirely different, then that starting salary may be slightly different. Companies, it depends on the company as far as do they consider the salaries that the previous salary. Some companies are not allowed to ask that question, what your salary was before, for various reasons. And that's, if you are, if the job is like 120,000 a year, I'm just using a random number, but your pre-MBA salary was 60,000 a year. That from their perspective, they may look at it like, oh, well, we can hire you and pay you less. And from the opposite perspective is, well, I can't afford you, right? So oftentimes they're not going to make that consideration, especially for post-MBA offers. Well, thank you everyone for joining and for asking such wonderful questions. If you would like to have a conversation about your own profile, ways that we can help you in preparing a really strong application, so that you can target round 1, round 2, or next year, whatever your plans are, please reach out. On the screen, you will see a web link to a request, essentially, to have a conversation. It's a 30-minute phone call where I get to know you a little more, your experiences, and hopefully provide you some tips on how you can approach this. But also it's an opportunity for us to see if, we can be of help in this process, because I know it's an important process for you and your career and your future. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you, GMAT Club, for putting this together. Wish you all good luck in this application process. Good luck with your GMATs and GREs and tests and everything else. And we'll see you soon.